I just love talking sports with my friends, and that's all I do with the Blue Jackets. So that's what it's all about. My name is Dylan Tyrer. I am a radio and social host for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and this is Into the Stands.
Dylan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks very much for having me, Dave. I'm excited to chat.
Absolutely happy it's hockey season.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
to start off, why don't you let us know, kind of in general, who you are and what exactly it is that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I could go on for a long time. Well, I'm Dylan Tyrer. I'm 27 years old. I'm originally from Manhattan Beach, California, so not necessarily hockey town, but I'm a big hockey guy working for the Columbus Blue Jackets now. I'm a radio host and kind of a social host for the Blue Jackets as well. I'm also our broadcast coordinator by title, so I do a lot of kind of the administrative day-to-day housekeeping work for our TV and radio broadcasts. But I grew up a baseball player. I played a lot of sports growing up, really, but baseball was my primary thing. But it just so happened that my house was about 5 minutes from the LA Kings practice facility in El Segundo, California. So I also grew up playing hockey. I think I started skating when I was 3 years old. Was
Perfect.
always into hockey. My family had a season ticket package to Kings games growing up. So that's how I kind of first got into it. I think I fell in love with the game when I watched Ken Belanger fight at center ice for the Kings and knock somebody's teeth out. I was hooked after that.
Oh yeah,
Um, Kind of got away from hockey for a little bit to focus on baseball. That was, like I said, that was my thing. But then right around the time that the Blackhawks drafted Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane, I got back into it. My dad's originally from Chicago, so I grew up a Chicago sports fan. While I said that, I fell in love with hockey going to Kings games, I was more of a Blackhawks fan growing up. So I watched a ton of hockey throughout high school and into college. I don't think I missed more than 5 Blackhawks games between my freshman year of high school and my freshman year of college. And the only reason I started missing Blackhawks games is because my sophomore year of college, I started working for the Blue Jackets. I was an intern originally. Then I came back as a part time radio production assistant for my junior and senior years of college. Then, right out of college, I became our radio host in a part time role. Then, after I think 2 seasons of part time radio hosting for the Blue Jackets, our director of broadcasting, Russ Mollahan, retired. I took on some of his duties and became full time. And I think the last 3 seasons, I've been full time with the Blue Jackets in my current role. And my current role has evolved a little bit. I've done more and more hosting on, social video. I've done some production work with some of our videos that we've put out. So yeah, I'm kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to broadcast stuff for us. Like I said, I do some administrative work, I do on air stuff, and then I do video stuff too.
that's awesome. So doing a little bit of homework, looking through your LinkedIn, it looks like everything that's listed on there is all broadcast related. Was broadcasting kind of the plan from the start, or is that something that you found? When I talked to Greg Murray, he said he went to school for business and then ended up converting over. So I didn't know if that was the same situation for you or not.
No, I definitely didn't go to college for business, but I always wanted to be a player, right? I think everybody that falls
Yeah,
in love with sports wants to be a player. And, I was a good athlete growing up. I played football and baseball in high school. I would have also played golf in high school, but in California, golf season's a little bit different than it is here. It's a spring sport, so it coincided with baseball season, so I couldn't play golf, but I'm also a big golfer. But going to college, I could have played some smaller college baseball, D3 baseball, or maybe a smaller D1. But I decided that I wanted to go to a big school. I always wanted to go to a big blue blood college that had great sports. And I thought about it, and I thought the best way to stay close to sports for me would be through broadcasting. Like I mentioned earlier, I was a huge Blackhawks fan growing up, so I always admired Pat Foley and Eddie Olczyk, who were the TV guys for the Blackhawks at that point. And it just sounded like they had so much fun doing what they were doing. And I'm a White Sox fan too, so at that point, Hawk Harrelson was calling the games, and he sounded like he had a lot of fun calling the games too. So I always thought, I love the stats. I was always into stats, just a sports nerd when it came to the stories and things like that. So I think I'm going to give this a try. Um, I also had some support from teachers in high school that thought I had a voice that resonated, and they were like, "You should get into broadcasting." So that kind of affected me as well, I guess. But with all that in mind, yeah, I wanted to get into broadcasting right away. I thought about Syracuse because that's frankly where a lot of the great broadcasters go to college.
Yeah,
I ended up getting into Syracuse and I went and visited, and frankly, I didn't like it very much in Syracuse. I just didn't like the campus. I didn't like Syracuse, the town, as much as I like some of the other college towns that I visited. And beyond that, you know, it's a great broadcasting school, but some of the sports they have there aren't necessarily what I'm interested in. Like, it's not major college football like at Ohio State. Obviously, it's D1 college football. Syracuse has their seasons here and there, but
yep,
it's not Ohio State. It's not Penn State, yada, yada, yada. They don't have baseball. They don't have hockey. I'm not a big basketball guy. I'm not a big lacrosse guy. So I just didn't think it was for me. I was really interested in some of the broadcasting programs they have there. I had a connection with Jay Alter, who calls games now for ESPN.
yeah,
He toured me around the school and, kind of gave me an idea of what it would look like if I would have gone there. And I was interested, don't get me wrong. But I visited Penn State after that, really liked Penn State. And then the last school that I ended up visiting was Ohio State. And it just so happened that I felt like Ohio State and Penn State were very, very similar in terms of the campus and everything they offered, but Penn State's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Ohio State is essentially next to downtown Columbus.
yep,
And I looked at all the opportunities outside of the fantastic sports they have at Ohio State. I thought about the Clippers, the Blue Jackets, the crew, yada, yada, yada. And I said, I'm going to have great opportunities during the summers or during the seasons to potentially intern with some of those teams. So I think this is the fit for me. So, I called all of those sports at Ohio State, whether it was baseball, football, basketball, hockey, wrestling, softball, soccer, called everything there.
yeah.
And it worked out like I had hoped, where I had the opportunity to intern with the Blue Jackets and the Clippers. And, I think it was the best decision I've ever made to attend Ohio State because it helped me get to where I am today.
That's awesome. So, um, you like you kind of mentioned, I know you're most known for your work with the Blue Jackets, but I've seen you, once or twice over at Ohio State calling baseball or doing various other things. You kind of touched on a little bit, but currently, is there anything else that you do that people might not be aware of? If they're not watching a BTN plus Ohio State game, they might not know you. Sometimes you'll fill in and call Ohio State baseball.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm doing everything I do with the Blue Jackets. I usually call the OHSAA semifinals and finals for hockey. They host those at Nationwide Arena, so I'm usually on the call for that. Yeah, I fill in whenever I can over at Ohio State, whether it's men's hockey, women's hockey, soccer, baseball, basketball. If they need a guy, I'm happy to fill in there. I love calling games at Ohio State. And then I usually do between 20 and 25 Clippers games every summer. I'll call those with Ryan Mitchell, who's the play by play guy for the Clippers. I get like 4 or 5 innings there. So that's always fun to kind of get those play by play reps and keep broadcasting over the summer, because I'll tell you, if you don't broadcast for a while, you're rusty when you come back. So it's nice that I'm able to get those reps on the air during the summer between hockey seasons.
For sure. So I'm assuming that, being that it's the full-time gig, the hockey coverage with the Jackets is probably the most favorite your most favorite position that you have, or am I wrong? Do you have something, is there one aspect of your job that you prefer that you like to do over others?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, the Blue Jackets thing is definitely where my heart is. Um, I would say within that job, I love all the creative work that I get to do with our video guys and our social media team. For example, the Adam Fantilli video that recently came out, just working with our video team on putting that together was a lot of fun. In the past, I've done a feature on Ohio State women's hockey. Did a feature on one of our blind fans, Tom Sager, last season. That was a lot of fun. So I have a lot of fun putting those things together and working with our video team. Donnie DiCaprio and Jonathan Demuth are a couple of our video producers that both do a great job. Everything that I do with the Blue Jackets, I love. Frankly, I love communicating with the fans, working with all the great people at the Blue Jackets. That's why I wanted to get into sports in the first place and get into broadcasting more specifically. I just love talking sports with my friends, and that's all I do with the
Absolutely.
Blue Jackets. So that's what it's all about.
Is there a sport that you haven't covered that you you might like to cover?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge golf guy. I kinda hinted at it
Okay.
earlier. I
Yeah.
I love golf. I love playing golf, so covering golf would I think would be really cool. I have no idea how to do it, but if I could get my foot in the door in the golf business, that would be a lot of fun.
Get you a nice little, CBS jacket someday.
Yes, I'm also a big horse racing guy too.
Oh,
I don't
that's a
know
little
how I
different.
get into
Okay.
that, but that would be interesting to do some horse racing someday.
Yeah. So, what does your we'll narrow it down to a Blue Jackets game day. What does your day look like on a Blue Jackets game day?
On a Blue Jackets game day, I'm usually there from about 9 or 9:30 in the morning until 10:30 or 11 at night. I show up, I get to our morning skate, observe practice, watch the lines, things like that, see what's going on, see what goalie's going to start the game. Then I get into the Blue Jackets dressing room. I do one on camera interview for our rink report that airs before the game. That's our in arena pregame show. Then I'll do a longer interview for our radio pregame show. Then we listen to Blue Jackets head coach Pascal Vincent do his press conference. If I have some questions, maybe ask him a couple of questions there. Then I head upstairs to the radio booth where we actually shoot the rink report pregame. So I do that with our video producers and our video interns. That takes, 10-15 minutes max. Then I go down to my desk on the Blue Jacket suite level. I get all of our radio drops prepared, all of the ads that you hear. Then I'll spend the next couple of hours, doing all my research that I need to do for our pregame show and the intermissions. Occasionally, I'll have to do a couple of pre recorded intermission interviews during the day. And then I usually have, a couple of hours just to relax. Then I'll go upstairs. We always, the video production guys and I have a series of games that we play based off of the initial Wordle game. There's lots of different types of Wordle variations out there that we play that usually take us some time. That's a daily ritual that we do every single day of the year.
That's awesome.
So we take care of those and then go down and eat in the media room and then hop on the air at 6:30. So it's a full day. Like I said, there's usually just a couple of hours of downtime that I have, but something usually comes up in there, whether it's something that I need to handle with TV or radio. So game days are pretty busy.
So, you mentioned, going to Pascal Vincent's press conference and all that. Did it take you time to kind of be comfortable asking questions to people in those situations, or is that something that's kind of come naturally to you?
I think once you do it for the first time, you just kind of get over that initial hesitancy to do it. When I started, John Tortorella was the coach of the Blue Jackets, so it was a little bit more intimidating at that point. But
Yeah,
yeah, for sure, I think for the most part, when you're new to it, you just kind of have to be there and understand the types of things that people ask. I think I tend to have pretty good questions just because, I'll notice something on the ice and I'll ask about it. Nowadays, I don't have any problem asking a question. Brad Larson was great for the last couple of
mhm,
seasons. I really respect him and just his willingness to, discuss hockey with me and some of the other people there.
yeah,
And Pascal Vincent's the exact same way. But when you're in that environment with John Tortorella, you better not be asking stupid questions. You got to know what you're
yeah,
asking, and he's an interesting guy because he responds to good questions. So I think that helped me a lot in understanding, what makes coaches tick and what really gets their interest or piques their interest and will get a good answer out of them. So I think that experience with Torts was really invaluable in terms of how to formulate good questions that are going to provoke good answers from coaches. So that's a long way of answering your question and saying,
yeah.
yeah, I was a little hesitant at the start, but nowadays I have no problem doing it. When it comes to the players, talking to the players is that's always been pretty easy, I think.
Yeah. So, I guess what kind of plans or, aspirations do you have moving forward? Unfortunately, in Columbus, and role opening up here at the end of the season with Rimmer stepping down, and I didn't know if that might be something you would be interested in going to, maybe like TV play by play or radio play by play for a professional team like the Jackets.
Yeah, I've always aspired to want to be a play-by-play guy. I had the opportunity to do some games on play-by-play during the Blue Jackets Traverse City Prospects tournament,
Yep, those were
And
pretty
I
good.
think doing those really reminded me how much I love doing play by play. It's just so much fun. So, yeah, I'm definitely interested in taking that step in my career, wherever it might be. I love working with the Blue Jackets, and I'd love to take that next step with the Blue Jackets. But, there are only so many jobs in this industry and only so many play by play jobs, especially. So, it's a really competitive field, and I understand that. But yeah, I do want to take that next step. That's a big aspiration of mine is doing play by play, whether it's radio or TV at the professional level. So that's something that I'm working towards. I'm always trying to perfect my craft and get better at it. That's one thing about me is that I'm always trying to get better no matter what I'm doing. That's how I stay motivated and how I really keep with what I'm doing, stay interested
For
in what
sure.
I'm doing. Beyond that, I've always really liked sports radio and podcasting. So if I was a radio host someday, that would be a lot of fun to me. Whatever it is, just
Yeah,
sticking in sports and having fun talking sports, like I talked about earlier, is what I want to do.
that's why I do this and the other ones that I do. It's just fun talking sports.
Yep,
S
exactly.
This one you also kind of, mentioned a little earlier with Olczek and all that, but do you have anyone that you do look up to professionally?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, first of all of our broadcasters at the Blue Jackets, I look up to professionally because they're the guys that I work with and they're the guys that I take direct inspiration from. I hear
Yeah,
them talk Blue Jackets every single day, so it's hard not to. Beyond that, Pat Foley was a big play-by-play influence early, the Blackhawks TV guy. Hawk Harrelson, Ken Hawk Harrelson, the White Sox play-by-play guy for a long time, is somebody that I looked up to growing up. He doesn't broadcast anymore. Jason Benetti, I think, is a fantastic broadcaster. He's the current White Sox play-by-play guy, but he does national football and basketball. In addition to Major League Baseball, he is a terrific broadcaster, and I actually have stolen a few segments from some things they do when it comes to we do Jackets math on the radio. They do Sox math during their games, so I
that's
did take
funny.
that from the White Sox, which I have a lot of fun with. But I will say, I think maybe my first broadcasting influence ever was probably Dan Patrick. Dan Patrick is a huge
Okay.
influence of mine. I love Dan Patrick's radio
Yeah,
show. Uh, my first memories of really sports radio, or my dad would drive me to school and we'd be listening to the Dan Patrick show. And I just think he's just so good at radio. The interviews, just how he interacts with his producers, how he
mhm.
interacts with his staff. I just think it's welcoming radio. I think it's quality radio. And I think, he gets the best out of his guests. So I would say that Dan Patrick probably piqued my interest when it came to broadcasting, and all those other guys have, supported that interest and helped me in getting better along the way.
Yeah, I think that's kinda the same thing, it for me, it was, Mike and Mike in the morning and,
Yeah.
Dan Le Batard, they just kinda figured out how to make it fun.
Hmm.
Um, so finally, what advice do you have for young people that, go into an arena and see you on the video board talking or hear you on the radio or TV, um, about, if they wanna get into this kinda industry, what advice do you have for them?
Well, first and foremost, you have to get reps. That's the biggest thing. You just have to get comfortable behind a microphone or on camera. You're not going to go anywhere without getting reps. So that's the number one thing. Then once you've gotten a few reps, don't hesitate to reach out to people for constructive criticism and feedback. That is the next step. You have to have people telling you what they think about your work, because that's how you get better. And beyond that, one of the hardest things to do is listening to yourself and watching yourself. If you're able to do that, then you really pick up on some of the things you're like, wow, that sounded stupid. If somebody that is listening to it, I think they might be nice about it, right? The way that they're
Mhm.
giving you criticism might be a little bit easier than, you listening to it and beating yourself up about it, but sometimes you have to do that. Like me listening to myself, I think that's the number one way that I've gotten better, is just listening to myself and self critiquing and self analyzing. So that is the second step, I would say, is getting feedback both from people that you respect and from yourself. And don't be afraid to reach out to people in the industry to listen to your work. I think more often than not, you might be a little bit hesitant to do it, thinking, oh, they're too busy or they're not going to
Mhm.
respond to my email. I think a lot of times people are willing to listen to your work and look at your work. I think people are willing to help you more than you realize. So
Absolutely.
that's another thing. Don't be afraid to hesitate to reach out, whether it's to, Bob McElligott or me or anybody out there, because, I'm frankly always willing to listen to your work or look at your work. It's no problem. I'm here to help.
That's
And
awesome.
after that, I would say you just got to advocate for yourself, right? You can't be scared to, reach out about a job opportunity, or once you apply to a job, immediately send an email to somebody saying, I'm really interested in this role. How can I, get myself to the top of the list? You have to advocate for yourself. Nobody out there is going to do it for you. So
Yeah.
I would say those three things: get reps is number one, get feedback on your work is number two, and included in that is analyze your own work. And then after that, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself.
For number 2, lucky for me, my friends have no problem telling me what I do wrong. So so that's all the questions I have about kind of your background and you. But I have 4 questions I ask everybody that comes on, call them power play questions because 'cause they're nice and
All
quick.
right, let's do it.
First, your favorite sports venue that you have ever been to, just in
Oh, my
attendance or
favorite sports venue that I've ever been to. I've been to a lot of good ones. I've called Ohio State play at Cowboys Stadium, or AT&T Stadium, I
oh,
guess it's
yeah.
called now. I've called a game at the Rose Bowl, which is really cool. I mean, some of the arenas in the NHL that I've been to are awesome. But I think my favorite all-time sports venue that I've been to might be Keeneland in Lexington, Kentucky. I went to the
Hmm,
Bluegrass Stakes there a couple of years ago, a horse race, and it was just an awesome day. It's a beautiful racetrack, for my money, the best racetrack in America. I have been to Churchill Downs, and I think Keeneland's better. So I think that might be my favorite sports venue. It's a magical place.
that's awesome. I feel like I might know the answer to this one, but, your favorite venue that you have worked or played in? I know you mentioned that you used to play a little bit of hockey and baseball, so, don't know if there's anywhere cool that you got to play growing up?
In high school, I got to play at Dodger Stadium. We were in the section finals my sophomore year of high school, so got to play at Dodger Stadium, I think, which is probably the coolest place I've ever gotten to play. Maybe a little bit more underrated. I don't think you think of golf courses as sports venues necessarily, but I've gotten to play LA Country Club a few times, where they had the US Open this past year. And I got to play Peachtree Golf Club in Atlanta, which is a top 30 course in America. It's kind of a secret. They call it, I think, Augusta's twin or Augusta's sister, something like that. But it looks just like Augusta National Golf Club, designed by the same guy. So it's a beautiful course and a beautiful experience. And I'm a big history guy, so there's lots of World War II history in that clubhouse there
Oh, that's
at
really cool.
Peachtree Golf Club in Atlanta. So I think that was a cool place too.
That's really cool. What is your favorite sports memory?
My favorite sports memory, my goodness, there are so many different ones that come to mind. Blackhawks Stanley Cups, watching those with my dad and my brother, they're right up there. The sweep of the Tampa Bay Lightning, that's right up there as well. Playing at Dodger Stadium is up there. I would, at this point, maybe the sweep of the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I'm hoping there are more memories that are going to come to me in the future. They're not
For sure.
memories yet, but someday there'll be memories that'll be my favorite one. But there's a lot. There might be too many to choose from.
Leading into the final question perfectly. If you could attend one sporting event, what would it be?
Well, I'd love to go to the Masters at Augusta National, but how about a game 7 of a Stanley Cup final with the Blue Jackets playing and the Blue Jackets winning? I think that hypothetically would be my number 1, but number 2 on the list would be going to the Masters. I think that would be pretty cool.
For sure. That was both, I talked to Greg Murray and Mike Todd, and that was both of their answers. And Greg said it was just because he wants to be able to touch the cup, but I don't blame him there.
I'd love
So,
to drink out of it. That would be even
oh
better.
yeah, absolutely. So that's all the questions I have for you. I don't know if there's anything that you um, take part in, anything that you kind of advocate for. If you do, this is your time to do it.
All right, everybody go check out the Franklin County Dog Shelter. I love the Franklin County Dog Shelter, and my girlfriend and I have done some volunteer work there before. We just recently adopted a dog from there. So if you're looking for a dog or you love dogs, go check out the Franklin County Dog Shelter, and tune into the Pipeline podcast presented by Ruoff Mortgage. It's the podcast that I do for the Blue Jackets, where I do get to know yous with all the Blue Jackets top prospects. I think I'm set to start our fourth season of the Pipeline podcast next Wednesday. So make sure to subscribe.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time here, and good luck this season.
All right, Dave, I appreciate it. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Dylan.
Hey guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me on another episode of Into the Stands, the podcast where I unravel the fascinating tales of sports and entertainment personalities. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. A big shout out to our friends over at Around the Fifth Line. It's a Blue Jackets based debate show that you can catch on YouTube as well as on all podcast platforms. If you're craving in-depth discussions about the game, they've got you covered. And for the latest hockey news and news focused on the Blue Jackets, head over to thn.com/Columbus, home of the Hockey News Columbus, with articles written by Jason Newland. Stay in the loop with the freshest insights and updates. Follow Jason on Twitter at F1RETheCannon for even more hockey goodness. Connect with us on social media. Follow me personally at The Scoreboard Guy, SCRBRD, and at Into the Stands for the latest on upcoming guests and exclusive behind-the-scenes content. We love hearing from our community, so drop us a message and suggest guests for future episodes. As we wrap up today's show, let's remember the wise words of both Wayne Gretzky and Michael Scott. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Until next time, this has been The Scoreboard Guy. Dave Fetzer, thank you for listening.